Hi, my name is Kristen, and I'll be the moderator for this debate. This debate will be focusing on service delivery for transition-age youth and adults, empowerment versus care. This debate will discuss issues with students with disabilities face when they transition into post-secondary and adulthood. The pursuit of self-sufficiency and independence is highly valued in our society and is reflected in many legislative laws and funding initiatives associated with individuals with disabilities. Despite such efforts, research findings support the fact that individuals with disabilities are not afforded the same opportunities as those without disabilities in determining the post-secondary choice. People with disabilities, especially those with severe disabilities, find themselves trapped in a system of care where their post-school choices are determined by others because of barriers related to attitudes and funding in education, rehabilitation, and healthcare. Our debate team members are Pam,
Hi.
who will be the introducer, Melissa,
Hi.
who will be serving as the stater, Elisa,
That's me.
who will be serving as the prover, Jamie,
Hi.
who will be acting as the attackers and will be taking the side of the attacker and providing rebuttals based on the view. Education does not include enough post-secondary training to prepare individuals for work or independent living. Lack of services and availability of quality of training results in lifelong dependency on others. Points of views will be stated in a time limit of 4 minutes. A warning sign will be given at the 30-second mark by me clapping my hands once.
Young adults with disabilities continue to face significant difficulties in post-secondary life as related to securing jobs, accessing post-secondary education, living independently, fully participating in their communities, and accessing necessary community services such as healthcare and transportation. Our debate will touch upon three main points. The first is person-centered planning, which relates to the ethical issue of respecting autonomy and doing what is best for the individual. Guideline 2.02 in the BACB's Professional and Ethical Compliance Code defines the responsibility that behavior analysts have to advocate for their client, while 2.05 states that clients have the right to be informed about their treatment and have their best interests put first. The second point will discuss legislative initiatives and funding, which relates to Guideline 2.09. Clients have the right to receive effective treatment, but behavior analysts must also weigh the cost effectiveness and potential risks for any service. Our final point will cover the outcomes for adults with ASD. Services should be discontinued only after the client has met the agreed upon goals according to Guideline 4.11. However, young adults are currently losing services as soon as they reach a certain age, whether or not they're prepared for the transition. While this practice is legal, it may not be ethical. Teams will debate whether or not current efforts are sufficient to bridge the gap seen in post-secondary enrollment and the ability to live independently and obtain gainful employment in individuals with disabilities.
We feel the main issue that education does not include enough post-secondary training to prepare individuals for work, independent living, or post-secondary education. This lack of services and quality of training promotes dependency on others. When transitioning into adulthood, autonomy should be respected and promoted, and there should be as little dependency as possible on others. Without continued individualized support, adults with ASD are not going to be able to maintain their skills. We feel there needs to be continued educational support system to increase success in transition so they can continue to move forward, maintain their skills and autonomy, and ultimately meet their full potential. Not only that, but regarding college and post-secondary environments, the post-secondary environment is very different from the secondary environment, and students with disabilities are accustomed to that. Therefore, effective preparation is vital to their success in college. We feel that schools are lacking in their instruction as it relates to skills needed to apply for college and to thrive in college. When heading to college, there should be continued support to help adults with ASD get through their college years. A person has a huge amount of support and guidance in the school system until the age of 21. At the age of 21, much of this support is taken from the individual and the family. Some parents have been said to equate individuals with disabilities graduating from high school to falling off of a cliff due to the shock that families encounter after graduation. Support should be phased gradually or as necessary based on data-related decisions and professional assessment. Another issue is post-secondary cost of care. Cost of care is not individualized per case, and we advocate the amount support and service delivery should be based on severity of disability and need and not on age.
The importance of transition planning in providing transition services to individuals with special needs has been identified by multiple studies. These studies have shown that when individuals begin services at or before age 14, they had higher rates of employment, earned a higher hourly wage, worked more hours, and require less support services throughout the duration of their active employment.
We feel that more discussions need to be held in schools regarding individuals with disabilities. We feel that the main concerns that should be discussed at age 14 or earlier to ensure a smoother transition to adulthood are the type of coursework students will need for a successful transition, the types of learning options and experience students will need to develop, as based on work skills for employment and skills needed for independent living. Schools should provide training services to prevent dependence on government and on families, and we feel that teaching skills and providing support will help these individuals maintain gainful employment and the ability to live independently, which would alleviate dependency on others. For these reasons, we believe service delivery should be started earlier.
This is supported by a wide body of research on post-secondary education, and each of these topics have been shown to influence post-secondary outcomes in satisfaction of services provided for individuals with special needs.
According to Compliance Code 2.02, a behavior analyst's responsibility is to all parties affected by behavior analytic services. When parties are involved and could be defined as a client, a hierarchy of parties must be established and communicated from the outset of the defined relationship. Behavior analysts identify and communicate who the primary ultimate beneficiary of services in any given situation and advocates for his or her best interests. To address these concerns, a behavior analyst can implement person-centered planning. Person-centered planning is a process that allows the person with a disability, their family members, and their friends an opportunity to share information regarding that individual and develop a personal profile and a future vision for that person. Team members should collaborate. They should use a problem-solving approach to develop a holistic long-term vision and a plan for that individual.
A study by Meaden, Sheldon, Apple, and DeGrazia in 2010 identified that the process of post-secondary and transition planning should be directed by the individual with special needs with the support or by somebody representing their best interests. This can be accomplished through person-centered planning. This entails individualizing goals with the person who is transitioning and their family. When transition plans are more individualized, cultural views, family values, and individuals' values are taken into consideration, the success rate of post-secondary transitioning are significantly higher. Activities for this programming can include helping students build self-determination, career awareness, and community placement, increasing parental knowledge about the longitudinal nature of transition planning, and determining areas of strengths and career preferences. Transition planning is supported by a large body of empirical evidence. Late starts to planning can be detrimental to those with special needs, and there is even supporting data on transition and planning and programming beginning as early as elementary school.
There are already transition programs that have started in the curriculum. Thanks to the reauthorization of IDEA in 1997, significant new requirements were put into place to ensure students greater access to the general education curriculum and assessment systems. IDEA 97 did expand previous transition requirements by requiring that each student's individual education program start at age 16. A statement of transition service needs focusing on the student's course of study, such as participation in advanced placement courses or vocational education programs. The current reauthorization IDEA will continue to support and strengthen these requirements. This proves that there is the capability to start earlier, and schools aren't using this to their advantage. For example, in Northern Virginia, transition plans start as early as age 14, so the schools do have the ability to transition earlier. Regarding access to employment for individuals with disabilities, special education programs have been influenced by several recent federal education reforms, including the School to Work Opportunities Act of 1994, Goals 2000, Educate America Act of 1994, the Improving America's School Act of 1994, the Workforce Investment Act of 1998, and the No Child Left Behind Act 2001, which promoted comprehensive strategies for improving public school programs for all students, including those from diverse multicultural backgrounds and situations of poverty. So there are laws coming through to attempt to help transitioning into adulthood. Some schools are even starting at age 14, like I said before. This means that it is occurring and other schools need to jump on the bandwagon.
Much of the rationale for establishing those new provisions were based on the recognition that many adults with disabilities are exiting school unprepared for adult life, like the requirement of transition planning under IDEA. Research continues to show again and again that there are still significant post-secondary outcome discrepancies between students with special needs and their peers, establishing insufficiencies. Looking at the data, this cannot be denied.
We feel that legislative initiatives and funding are not sufficient enough to bridge the gap seen in post-secondary enrollment, also in adult employment in individuals with disabilities. While there is an increase in youth attending post-secondary schools and an increase of awareness in transitional issues, enrollment of people with disabilities into post-secondary education programs is still 50% lower than it is for the general population. Another major issue is the fact that legislation does not individualize cost of care or support based on the severity of the disability. Families and individuals with ASD continue to face financial hardships when it comes to the expenses of the needs and the services, such as education, vocational training and support, medical and behavioral health, activities of daily living, socialization, community living, which includes financial and housing support. The needs and services are expensive and complex for those with ASD. When state resources become scarce, new funding will need to be available to help offset that cost. There's a significant amount of research pertaining to the funding of ASD that states the demand continues to far exceed the available resources, leaving large amounts of individuals with ASD and their families in service and financial uncertainty. Funding includes federal, state, private, and family resources, state agencies such as Medicaid, Social Services, and Department of Education, and also private insurance coverage.
This is supported in multiple studies which identify that many individuals with special needs are requiring lifelong financial support from government service such as Social Security or Medicaid and/or their family members. This creates financial burdens on both taxpayers and their families. Families within the populations of individuals with special needs also cite financial stressors as a major negative impact of having a child with special needs. These financial concerns create conflicts within the family units.
Several funding options have come available to help those with ASD. Thanks to several agencies, ASD is becoming less of a financial burden to the individuals and their families. Medicaid is a primary provider for those with ASD. As long as an individual meets the criteria and qualifies, Medicaid or a waiver can be provided. Approximately 10% of Medicaid funds go to the services for those with ASD, which makes Medicaid one of the biggest funders. Funds from Title V, the state Medicaid program, and state and local education funding are the denominators for ASD services financial support. Autism bureaus, health, human service agencies, developmental disability agencies, and vocational rehabilitation agencies, social services, and the Department of Education are other state agencies that fund ASD services. Private insurance coverage is an important component of care financing in ASD, relieving a portion of the burden that would otherwise fall to local, state, and federal governments. As you can see, the government does help out financially to the best of their abilities.
Although that may be true, we feel there is still room for additional funding for those with ASD to make the needs of services more affordable. Individuals with ASD are likely to have varying needs throughout their lifetimes. With high demands for ASD services, strong and solid infrastructure needs to be in place to handle these needs. The cost and funding of transitional services can be a huge burden on families when medical costs are already skyrocketing. An expansion and improvements of traditional services, and the development of new and creative alternative options will need to be evaluated and established in order to serve those with ASD. As this relates to outcomes, it remains to be true that individuals with disabilities are considerably lower than those without disabilities. There are many factors that are associated with the low statistics of these outcomes. One issue that is detrimental to post-secondary success is the inability to gain and maintain meaningful employment and the ability to successfully live independently.
Despite the stated availability of services and funding, the fact is that outcomes are still largely poor. When looking at employment for individuals with special needs, the following can be identified. There is significant limitations on accessing employment. For those who have procured employment, there are still significantly high rates of underemployment. Individuals with special needs typically make lower hourly rate from their peers. A lack of available or skill deficits in accessing transportation creates barriers in job accessibility, and current transition services are not effective in procuring acceptable outcomes. Yellen and Katz in their 1994 study found that the percentage of individuals with disabilities who participate in today's labor force with less than a high school diploma is only 15.6%. This rate doubles to 30.2% for those who have completed high school. With some post-secondary education, it triples to 45.1%, but only climbs to 50.3% for those at least 4 years of college. There is also a significant body of research from the last 2 decades that has consistently shown poor outcomes for individuals with special needs. When these individuals leave school, their access to employment, post-secondary education opportunities, and community-based adult services are extremely limited. The importance of gaining and maintaining meaningful employment cannot be understated. The single most important outcome in defining the outcomes for individual special needs has been employment. The single factor has been identified as one of the most influential factors when determining the quality of life for individuals with special needs.
I understand, but there is the Americans with Disability Act of 1990, states federal civil rights law, which guarantees individuals with disabilities equal opportunities in employment, public accommodations, state and local government services, transportation, and telecommunications. Even with the ADA in 1990, it may not be worthwhile for many individuals to receive vocational training. A study by Samara and Cohen, 2009, reviewed the cost of vocational rehabilitation services and identified that the cost of the services required for adults with ASD exceeds the amount they earn, with an average ratio of $19.19 to every dollar earned. The state provides for group homes for these individuals. This is a way for them to socialize with other individuals, and they don't have to support themselves because the government helps provide for the group homes. They have the transportation necessary to take the individual to their job. Not only that, the percentage of post-secondary enrollment is on the rise. Multiple studies show, as a result of ADA Section 504 of the Rehabilitation Act of 1973 and other federal legislation, awareness has grown regarding accessibility issues faced by youth with disabilities seeking post-secondary education, lifelong learning, and employment. The number of youth in post-secondary schools reporting a disability has increased dramatically, climbing from 2.6% in 1978 to 9.2% in 1994 to nearly 19% in 1996. Again, based on the Samara and Krauntz 2009 study, the current vocational training are also sustainable. The number of individuals receiving vocational rehabilitation services in the United States has increased from 0.2% in 2002 to 0.6% in 2006. However, the cost per individual has decreased by 9%, and overall costs have only increased by 3%. There are increasing vocational services to promote successful employment in this growing population. Right now, we have sustainability, but any changes may make the cost of these services too high, which may cause all vocational rehabilitation services to be cut from the budget.
Due to the minimal enrollment in post-secondary schooling, individuals with disabilities continue to be at a disadvantage in the workplace. Studies show that individuals with disabilities have a significant lower rate of success in the areas of supporting themselves financially, living independently, and maintaining gainful employment. We feel that these struggles are due to the limited transitional skills and the lack of individualized planning for their transition. Also, the sudden decrease in services once the student reaches 21. Maintenance is an essential component for individuals with ASD. If we know this during school age years, why are we not implementing this post-graduation? Generalizing skills to post-secondary settings, whether it be working or college, is a difficult task for individuals with ASD.
As identified by Mach et al. In 2011, increasing demands will require the following areas in order for sustainability and success of the services, and these include communication and collaboration between state agencies and divisions, local and federal agencies, and non-government groups. For successful collaboration, the involved groups must have a shared vision, leadership, a variety of partnerships, joint planning, strong communication structure, consistent training, and sustainability. State initiatives and recent developments such as the Medicaid State Plan Amendment will help to improve the services needed for those with special needs. But the needs and services are expensive and complex. When resources become scarce, new funding will be needed to be available to help offset the costs, and what are we going to do then?
We're sending generation after generation out unprepared for adult living. With the already limited resources available, we have to ask ourselves, can we afford more generations that will be dependent on government resources in order to be productive members of society and function for the rest of their lives?
In conclusion, there are not enough transition services to prepare students for successful post-secondary living. A successful and independent adulthood would increase quality of life for many individuals with disabilities and their families. School-based transition plans and vocational training increase the probability of good outcomes for individuals as they exit high school. In order to achieve this goal, transition planning and training needs to start at age 14 or earlier. Another factor related to success in the transition to adulthood is the ability to continue receiving education and other necessary services, and there should be funding in place to cover those costs. Also, gaining and maintaining meaningful employment is one of the most influential factors when determining quality of life. Many individuals encounter barriers in the workplace, such as lacking the training to find and take transportation in order to get to their job. And at the workplace, individuals often don't receive appropriate training and lack the skills needed to maintain their job. The intervention efficacy is in question due to current outcomes and the percentage of unemployed individuals with disabilities. Services need to be provided throughout the lifespan to ensure that individuals with disabilities have the opportunity to live successful lives. When looking at the Behavior Analyst Code of Ethics, there are many conflicts related to transitioning to adulthood. Behavior analysts have the responsibility to respect individual autonomy, provide appropriate, effective services, and advocate for the needs of their clients in order to ensure their success. And the video that we're concluding with is to summarize the factors talked about throughout the debate and to show the impact it can have on individuals with ASD and their families.
Meantime, 1 in 68 children in the United States are now diagnosed with some form of autism spectrum disorder. But what happens to all those kids as they grow into adulthood? NBC national correspondent Kate Snow has been looking into that transition for us. Kate, good morning.
Good morning, Willie. For 3 years, we've been following a family, an amazing mother who's been doing all she can to provide what her son needs. For years, he went to school, but on his 21st birthday, all those services would end. And like other parents of children with autism, she was terrified. They often compare it to falling off a cliff. When Eric Sadowski was 3, he was diagnosed with autism.
Eric, do you want some bagel? You want bagel? Yes.
His mom, Mary Clancy, stopped working to devote all her time to helping Eric. I'm sure you would do absolutely anything for your son.
Of course, I knew this kid had so much in him that any help that he needed, we gave to him.
When Eric got older, that help came at a school for children with developmental disabilities. His local public school district covered the tuition, and Eric loved it.
It's a place where he's understood and he's cared about. The Rebecca School is like a family to him.
But it wasn't a family he could keep, because under federal law, children with disabilities like autism have to leave school by the age of 21, and there's no federal or state system required to take over. Eric understood what was coming. He told an aide he wanted to put off graduation.
You don't have graduation for 5 more years?
No. Not yet. You have 5 more years of school.
This is pretend or real?
Real.
We were with Eric on his last day of school.
Bye, Tina. Can I give you a hug? Would that be okay? Goodbye.
After that final bus ride, Eric was stuck at home all day with his mom. He started to lose some of his language skills.
So she can't sit in the circle. Circle. So she can't sit in the circle.
Mary looked at day programs for Eric offered by the state, but couldn't imagine putting her son in one.
I visited 22 different sites, and what I saw was just frightening.
What did you see?
I saw rooms full of people with their heads on the tables, wandering around, just being in storage.
So Mary started paying out of pocket for any activity to get Eric out of the house.
We haven't been able to save any money. We don't have retirement. But it's kind of like when people ask me, how much does it cost to raise a kid with autism? Everything you've got.
Mary has never given up. She did find an art program for adults with developmental disabilities. And milk or juice?
Milk.
Breakfast. Eric's art has been in exhibits. He's even sold some of his drawings.
I'm so pleased. I just think, he does have a chance at a life away from me. This is a new beginning for him.
But she worries about Eric's future and the future of the country, with about 500,000 children with autism expected to age out of the education system over the next 10 years.
It's not going to get any better until parents get together and enforce change. It's the most important thing you can do for your kid.
So Mary and her family allowed us to follow them for all that time, hoping that other families will be inspired to raise their voices too. We also followed another family who had a really difficult choice. Their dad was getting transferred for work to
Okay, and that's the end.
The video was a very nice touch. I think, it's always nice to have real people talk about these things that we've been talking about, because when we talk about it, it's the stuff that we read, that we talk about amongst each other, but then when you put somebody, we all have clients, we all have had clients who've aged out, and we all know their stories, but this is nice for this debate. And yeah, I think, with 1 in 68 kids, it's not just one kid whose transition we have to think about. It's a lot of kids, and then then you go beyond autism. There is all other kinds of disabilities, physical disabilities, different cognitive disabilities, all these genetic disorders, and there's this then the population is even more. I don't know the number of people who aren't typical developing, who have a lot of special needs, and then there is individuals with mental health issues, so it's just, you start thinking, you're like, oh gosh, we all have to somehow take the onus of this, and the parents some parents don't even know that they can think about these things. They feel like the kid is just going to stay home until somebody dies or some big major life change happens. But it's a lot of things. I think we have to figure out a way, and then it doesn't help. The economy is not the best, and so many people who are fully functioning cognitively and fully functioning bodies don't have jobs, and then so it's kind of not the most exciting thing to talk about. But I think we have to figure out, as we create new jobs, as we because some of you are going to go and open work companies, to do with behavior analysis or to do with anything else, and to think about how we can maybe support one individual at some point of the day. And like this individual in the story was making art and selling his own art, and that's something I think it's inspiring to know. And I think in this age of technology, and everybody is getting rich and everybody's kind of getting famous and recognized on the internet. I think it's nice to know that there are things you just have to think outside the box. Not every kid aging out has to get the same kinds of job. I think we just have to all really work hard on thinking outside the box and making sure we're thinking of things ahead of time, when they're 14, 13, and not wait to have this talk when they're 17 or 18 or about to age out this year. So, nice debate. I think the video was a really nice touch.
Thank you.
Yep.
Okay, well, if that's done, then we can conclude the discussion.
Okay, so I hit stop broadcast, right? Okay. Bye, guys.
Bye.